All right, we are back for the second to last talk on this stage. The second to last time that we get to introduce you to someone. And before we get started, I would like to ask you, on a scale from 1 to 10, just shout out, how proficient do you feel in HTML? Someone, say something.
4.3.
That's precise.
2. Are you a developer? Ah, okay, that's the problem. All right.
Perfect. You're my target audience.
Aha. That's exactly where I was going with this. Because I am hoping that everybody that said or even thought, most of you thought, I think, said or thought anything above maybe an 8, maybe we can shake your confidence with this talk a little bit. Maybe we can make you reconsider your skills. And everybody that rates themselves something below a 5 will walk out of this talk knowing more. And I think that's the best kind of talk. And so let's talk about semantic HTML. We are so happy to introduce a returning speaker.
Kind of.
A kind of returning speaker. Katrin is going to tell us about semantic HTML and all of the things of accessibility and performance, maybe things that are affected. Let's get off the stage and leave it to you. Thank you so much. Round of applause.
Enjoy.
So, hello everyone. Right direction. This is me at my happy place when I'm not working as a front-end developer and auditor at Mindscreen. And I also have a background in literature and linguistics. So today you will realize what that means for you, because we will talk about semantic HTML. And as always, we start with a little example. Consider this a screenshot. It has in large bold letters, "Welcome to my website," followed by small text. Again, followed by large and bold text. And more small text, which is a little longer. Now, what could be HTML for this website content? A div with class font bold, font XL, followed by a div font regular, font small, followed by another div with font bold, font large, and so on. So, question, who expected a little bit different HTML here? Raise your hands. Very good, because this is technically valid HTML, but not semantically valid HTML, marking up our content with headings and paragraphs, and more, of course, will make it semantically appropriate. Now, in the context of a website and documents in general, think of Word documents or PDFs, short bits of text that are large and bold usually tell us this is a heading. They are a title, a kind of summary to what is following afterwards in small letters. Now, this is semantics in action, and now let's get to the theory, because you know I have this background in linguistics. What's the definition of semantics? A good start is usually a dictionary. The Oxford Learner's Dictionary tells us semantics, that's the meaning of words, phrases, or systems. All right, the meaning, but what's the meaning of meaning? The meaning is the thing or idea that a sound, word, or sign represents. So a word like table represents the thing with a platform and legs that connect to the ground floor. And when we look at our headings that we had before, we will see that a heading is a concept, in this case an abstract concept. It does not have a physical reference like this table or the wall. And when we write it, because it's HTML, we use the signs smaller than, the letter H, number 1, and larger than. That way, we express the representation. H1 in HTML means heading. Now, how do we recognize this? This is convention. In our case, in the form of the web, we have the HTML specification that gives us this convention. And we need to be in the context of a code file of a web page, so we can mutually understand that H1 written in HTML means it's a heading, in this case, first level heading. And my actual heading, welcome to my website, is a reference, an occurrence of this concept of a heading. Who or what uses our semantic HTML? First of all, the browsers. They load the HTML first, and if no additional CSS is given, they apply basic styles. Next, we have two groups of visitors. The first are people who use assistive technology. Think of screen readers, braille keyboards. They typically don't see well the visual parts of a website. They interact with the HTML. Same goes for search engine bots. And they don't just stop at the title and the meta description that is in the head of the HTML. They also look at the rest of the page to see what's going on. And for both of these groups, headings serve like a guidance, like a table of contents. And our first div-only markup doesn't have much. It's all text of the same kind. Whereas the second markup, with headings and paragraphs with different levels, they give us meaningful structure about the page. What constitutes meaning in HTML? Now, it's not the HTML elements first. They come second. First comes the content, how we present our information. This is an example from the MDN web docs. We'll talk about them later. And they have learning modules. And each module starts with a list, this you can see on the left side. They start with a list of learning outcomes. Now, for this purpose, I've rephrased them on the right side, the same content, as a paragraph. And depending on how you present the information on a web page, you choose the HTML elements. If it's a list, UL or OL, in this case an unordered list, UL, or in the case of a paragraph, it's a P tag. And you add additional HTML elements, of course. The next level of semantics comes with HTML attributes. Think of the alt attribute. Oopsie, sorry. The alt attribute of image tags that hold the text alternative for the image. The lang attribute that define the language of a whole page or a certain part of the page. Think of input elements. They have the required attribute to say, yes, you really need to fill this out. Then we have ARIA attributes. They add meaning specifically for assistive technology, such as screen readers, and come in two flavors. One are the ARIA dash attributes, such as ARIA label, ARIA expanded, ARIA hidden, and a lot more. And the other flavor are role attributes that add roles to your element according to the specification. You cannot come up with your own ARIA attributes or role attributes. And last but not least, something you usually don't see rendered on a page in a browser is microdata attributes that add, following the schema vocabulary, structured data. I think the main use case is on search result pages, where companies like Google go ahead and take your microdata attribute and display your events, your job postings, your products directly within Google or Microsoft and Bing, etc. So to round this up, the content has a meaning, and your HTML, secondly, must adequately represent that meaning. Now, even if we know all the HTML or think to know it, there are still things that can fail. How we write the code. For example, if we're in a hurry, how we understand the tutorials, how we communicate with clients, with team members, with other project partners. There are pitfalls, dangers that are hidden and not so easily recognized. And I want to present you with some of these pitfalls, so hopefully you can more easily spot them. Number one, ignoring the separation of concerns. Example one, breaking the meaning of HTML. Imagine a forum. Someone asks, hey, I have the CSS problem, what can I do? And someone answers, use this trick with HTML. Nope. That must ring alarm bells. Remember our groups of site visitors who mainly interact with the HTML of our page, the people with assistive technologies and search engine bots? An HTML trick will likely change the meaning of something or even everything on your page. So here's the actual example. I've removed the names because they didn't play a role here. The question was, is there an equivalent for reverse, flex row reverse for display grid? And someone added, just add direction right to left to the tag. Luckily, someone already answered, this is not a good solution at all. Never change the reading direction of something in CSS or directly in HTML unless the actual language you are using will be read from right to left. Because assistive browsers and assistive technology will react to this tag. The separation of concerns between HTML for the structure and meaning, CSS for the layout and styles, and JavaScript for the interactivity is still valid. The HTML specification also puts it, authors must not use elements, attributes, or attribute values for purposes other than their appropriate intended semantic purpose, as doing so prevents software from correctly processing the page. Now you will often read, and it's also a recommendation that is often given, that it's always possible to change the look and feel of a given tag using CSS. So when using HTML, take the time to focus on the meaning rather than the appearance. But another tiny pitfall, there's an exception to every rule, in this case, tables. Tables when applying a different display property. Imagine a table and you have applied display flex. That will break the semantic meaning of a table. Using CSS display properties to change a table layout has a tendency to remove the underlying semantics and thereby make it impossible for people with assistive technology to properly navigate through the table. They have to go through each and every cell or skip the content entirely, and then it's lost. Lost for them. They will not get informed about it. Another example, ignoring the separation of concerns, is applying interactivity where it is not appropriate. I've chosen an example that is pretty common in the world, cards, the card component, often used for a list of articles. This is taken from inclusive design cards, the card component. And one feature about cards is that usually the whole area is clickable with a mouse. So wherever you click on the image, on the heading, on the text, you can click that link. Now here's the structure at the top, the visual structure. At the top you have the image, then again in large and bold, the heading, followed by the description or teaser text or card text or whatever you might want to call it, and often there is an optional read more link. Now, a common though false implementation is that the link element, the A tag, is placed around all of the content. That's a quick win for the interactivity. With just one tag, you made the whole card clickable, but you've destroyed the semantics. Now the link text that is read to people with assistive technology is the heading, the description, if you have an image alternative text that's read, and the optional read more text. Now here we have a better implementation. The link is placed on the content part that really serves as a meaningful label, the heading. Also note how the heading and the link are combined, structured. First you have the block level heading, and inside the inline level link element. And yes, I'm showing this for a reason, because I've seen it implemented otherwise. Now, to achieve the effect of clicking the whole area of the card and be linked to the other page, you use a JavaScript or CSS solution, because that's the separation of concerns you apply here. I also want to note how the image has moved down after the heading and the text part, even though visually it's placed on top of the heading or above the heading. Now, headings mark the beginning of a section, and screen reader users or users with assistive technology can jump to headings directly. They mark the beginning, and so they continue from there on. If your image has meaningful content, if, for example, a product image where you describe the product, people with assistive technology will miss that image if in the DOM it's before. And from an accessibility perspective, that's considered okay for two conditions, or with two conditions. One, the image is not interactive. You cannot focus it. And two, the image in the end is visually placed close to the actual content. So let's summarize. The link element goes on the meaningful label, only there. The clickable area we achieve with JavaScript or CSS. The image is placed in the DOM after the heading and visually positioned before using CSS. And as a little bonus, if you have a group of cards, a list of article teasers, for example, you use a list element. In this case, an unordered list. Pitfall number 2, we all know it, naming is hard. Even more so when different groups of people come together. Example 1, naming elements. Imagine an email by a client. Hello, we want to make a change in the header. Please rearrange the layout of the image and the product name. Also, on some pages, we want to use a video instead of an image. And it dawns on you, the client is not talking about this upper bar on a website that has the main navigation, often a search, and is the same on all pages. No, they are talking about the part below, typical on home pages and landing pages, and a part that has many names. That is an example from Bootstrap, and Bootstrap calls it the hero, or heroes. All right, they set the stage on your homepage that feature a clear call to action. Now, in our company, we call it the stage. And you can also see it very often that it's called the banner. Now, the actual header, the top part, that is the same on every page, is the name amongst developers and also amongst accessibility professionals. But people from the accessibility world also know it to be an element with role banner. And no, unfortunately, I cannot bring a fun fact of why it's called that way. That would be really cool, but no. But remember the word banner, because UI designers, and you can find that in many design systems, also use the word banner for components that is rather a prompt with a message, and requires a user action quite often. Think of a cookie banner or the feedback after user action. So we have many names for when the client says header, they might mean the stage or the hero element. The designers say header, where accessibility professionals also know it to be the element with role banner. The designers, UI designers, use the word banner for things that are alerts or notifications, and the whole situation is a bit unfortunate. I like to compare it to learning another language. There are maybe odd expressions. There will be false friends. And on a conscious or subconscious level, this can lead to confusions. There will be mental barriers, a mental load, and it will lead to misunderstandings. Now the question is, can we do anything about it? In part, yes. In part, not. Remember our concept of how, or chart of how the concept of a heading is represented by written HTML, has occurrences, and how all this works with convention, definitions, so to speak, and within a certain context. Now, unfortunately, I have to admit that the part about the meaning or concept of a word is not that easy. There's not just the conventional definition that we all can look up in a dictionary. No, every meaning for every person, for every individual, also has a cultural connotation and personal associations. Think of memories or experiences that a person made. That influences the meaning of a word for every person. And it's something we cannot change. That's the unfortunate part, but we can change how we communicate. If we are more aware of our connotations and personal associations, we can better communicate to other people. And we can be more aware of other people having a different understanding. Off to my next example. Label and name. Words often used. You might be especially confused, or it can come up as a mental confusion when you read the report of an accessibility audit. And now with the European Accessibility Act coming up, that might happen more often. So, label and name in HTML in the specification are very specific. Label is an element, name is an attribute within form elements. That's it. Label and name in accessibility, it's a bit more fluffy. That's my favorite word of the day. So on the label side, we have the attribute aria label or aria labeled by, and we find phrases such as labeling an element. On the name side, we have name in a very fixed term, the accessible name. So this is a fixed term, we will start with that one. It has a definition in the ARIA specification, and it says, the accessible name is the name of a user interface element. Again, a bit unfortunate in the explanation because the name is a name, for me is not really helpful. And I think the reason is because it's used in a very basic meaning. I'm sorry, it's really hard to say it in a different way. Like the name of a person. Every one of us has a name, but always better is an example. Consider these two buttons. They both have the visible text menu, but their names are different. Here we can see the properties. By the way, that's a screenshot of the developer tools, and there the accessibility panel. That's a bit different where to find them, but all of the major browsers have that. And here we can read the accessible name. On the left-hand side, the name is menu. On the right-hand side, the name is open menu. So they have different names. Both are a button. How does that happen? This is the HTML for both of these buttons. On the left-hand side, very straightforward element button or tag button and the text node menu. On the right-hand side, we've added the ARIA label attribute that holds the text open menu, and that overrides the accessible name of the actual text node menu. And that's how these two buttons have actually different accessible names. Now let's get to the left-hand side here, the ARIA label and phrases such as labeling element. The ARIA label has a definition as a state and property, and it says, it defines a string value that labels the current element. So here we are again, labeling the element. Unfortunately, this will stay fuzzy because there is no explanation or description in the specification what labeling an element actually means. And I've already said it, dictionaries are a good first start when you want to know about something. And I found a quite good and concise description in the Merriam-Webster dictionary. A label is a descriptive or identifying word or phrase. And especially identifying word, an identifying word is helpful here. So when you label an element, you are identifying it. You open the menu. As a roundup, different groups of people use different words to maybe mean the same thing, or use the same word but maybe mean different things due to not just the conventional definitions, but also their cultural connotations and personal associations. Pitfall number 3, misinterpreting the resources or misjudging them. We all constantly look up things on the internet. For every result, we need to assess if it's a valuable resource. Does it help? Can it be trusted? A Stack Overflow answer from 2012 might have been accurate back then, but is it still today? Because HTML is in constant development. Here's an anecdote example from about a month ago. Alvaro Montoro wrote, "Today, I coded an HTML tag search with the attribute role search. The search role is intrinsic in the HTML tag, but I added it to provide semantics for older browsers as the search tag, the HTML tag, is still relatively new. Now the linter complained that role search was not really needed, technically correct, and suggested removing it. Then Copilot complained that the HTML search is not a standard HTML tag and suggested using div role search instead. And some people still wonder why semantic HTML is not more widespread." So we as developers have to decide now what to do. Which technology is correct, the linter or Copilot? Or are they both wrong? Now the initial solution, search HTML tag search with an attribute role search, is indeed the correct solution here. The role search and the HTML tag have the same semantic. Nothing is changed or overridden. Also, nothing is added here. And so it's totally fine and indeed often recommended for exactly this, browser compatibility reasons and also screen reader access compatibility reason. But what can you do if you find this kind of contradicting information? So some general advice: check the resource. Where did you find this information? Is it like a trusted, known, or recommended information within the community? And I'll quickly come to the part where I can give you some tips where to look up and check the information that you find. Another thing that is sometimes not so easy is check the date. In a forum post, you have a date. Often on articles, you might not find one, because old is not bad, but maybe it's outdated. And so double check whatever you find, and don't just use the first thing that you find and that works. Also, since we mentioned Copilot, I want to make a note on large language models and generative AI, because my recommendation, even though they are getting better and better, is to be especially careful with these answers by Copilot, ChatGPT, and co. If you're lucky and it cites a resource, go and check that resource. Summaries are often wrong or maybe misleading, not quite to the point. And generative AI is a token prediction machine that works on probabilities. What appears often in the training material is more likely to be presented in the results. But often used does not mean it's a good solution, or not necessarily. And yes, there is refinement and training of AI models, and it's constantly getting better, but it still has all the old code. There is not much transparency about the training process, so we don't know how well the results are actually curated, which leaves us, we still have to know what we're doing. And with that, we come to resources for writing better HTML. I've collected, personal recommendations, general trusted and recommended resources from the front-end and accessibility community. And before I start, I will publish the slides afterwards, and they all have links. So you can check out the slides, and from there on, go to all of the resources. So, number 1, the MDN web docs. You might still know them as Mozilla Developer Network web docs. They're the number 1 resource to check up. Why? They contain all of the specifications for HTML, CSS, JavaScript, all of the browser API information, like media, for example, or audio. They have an abundance of examples, things to consider when implementing them, guides and learning materials. So it's really extensive. And one idea as an entry point for HTML, if you check out the HTML reference, that's a list of all the HTML tags there are. Go read through them. What you already know, you skip and read to the ones that you don't know. And the next project will come where you can apply more semantic HTML. Then I've gathered a few front-end related resources. Number one is web.dev. That's a relatively recent service by Google. Again, with information about HTML, CSS, JavaScript, an extra part on accessibility, etc. More built up as like a tutorial that you can work through. The Smashing magazine for I don't know how many years, a long time, is a big resource on all things web development. And they often have articles with detailed explanations on how to implement common and complex UI components. CSS Tricks does not have that much HTML content, but I want to mention it because, in general, for all the CSS and JavaScript trickeries and solutions they present, they always keep or try to keep accessibility in mind. And they have died, but it's alive again. So CSS Tricks is still a thing to check out. HTML is maybe a not so known resource. That's a collection of bad HTML examples. Think of the card implementation earlier. This you can find there, along with advice on how to do better. And if you prefer the German, more German language, more introductory part, self-HTML is also still alive. Now, reading into accessibility, these can be good starting points for you. Adrian Roselli and Eric Eggert are two trusted individuals in the community, and they have extensive information in their blogs. The newsletter Accessibility Weekly, or in short, Ally Weekly, every week has an abundance of information. Good starting point. And there's also a few companies who have well-maintained company blogs. Among them are Tetralogical, DQ, and TPGI. And these are names you will find out more often now that you know them. Next, that's not just accessibility professionals, but also front-end professionals, or at first professionals, who are my personal recommendations. It's not an extensive list. I had to choose a few, and these are on the list. Number one, Sarah Swiden writes a lot on her blog and recently published a course, Practical Accessibility, aimed at developers to get better in this field. Leonie Watson is a super trusted and recommended community person, director of Tetralogical, which we have seen before, and also a member in the W3C board of directors, so very involved. Manuel Matusovic on the blog has all things front-end, if you want to learn about HTML, CSS, JavaScript, the hottest and latest. Manuel's blog is great, and he recently published the book Web Accessibility Cookbook. Good resource. Kevin Powell, if you prefer videos, the YouTube channel by Kevin Powell, perfect start to learn. Accessibility requirements. You might find yourself in the situation that you have to build a more complex UI component or a new feature that has to be accessible. Now, how do you know if you really achieved your accessibility requirements? And these are 3 resources that you can go to. The first one, the ARIA Authoring Practices Guide, APG, is by the W3C Accessibility Initiative. The second, Bifid Bund, in German, barrierefreie Gestaltung von User Interface Elementen. Bifid Bund is a German federal organization. And Magentally is a relatively new service by the company T-Systems, who also do accessibility auditing. And all these resources state the requirements for usage of a component with keyboard, with screen reader, everything you have to keep in mind as an acceptance criteria or definition of done. And I want to mention one thing about the first entry, the ARIA Authoring Practices Guide. Oh, that's always a mouthful. They have all the requirements and they also have examples. Unfortunately, these examples often use the ARIA solution, but it's not always the best solution to use in production. They have a disclaimer on each page, but just so you already heard of it, don't just take it at face value. Nonetheless, the requirements are the de facto standard. Now, specifications. When you're mainly a backend developer, looking into the specification is maybe the least likely thing to do for you, but it's what's the basis, like a dictionary or manual for every browser and every technology that consumes HTML. The specifications are the basis. So, yes, you can read into the HTML specification. It's actually readable, and the good thing is it has many clarifying examples. So, in case of doubt, go to the specification. Same goes for ARIA. The first link in version 1.0 is the current specification for using ARIA for more complex UI components. And I've added a few more documents, like notes on how to use ARIA. And since ARIA and HTML intertwine with each other, it's also good to know how ARIA has intrinsic meanings in HTML elements. And that's a lot. So here, hot off the press from Smashing Magazine, I've mentioned it, Eric Bailey has an article, What I Wish Someone Told Me When I Was Getting Into ARIA. And it's extensive. It has everything you have to know. It details pitfalls with all of these resources, but also for what they're good for. So use the right tool or the right resource for the job. And I'm pretty sure this will be a recommendation for the next years because it's really good, a really good resource. Then HTML is in constant development, and browsers and software assistive technology companies need to get up to speed. Can I use, I suppose, is relatively known for all things HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and the browser APIs. The same for screen reader technology or assistive technology is allysupport.io. Unfortunately, you have to use it with caution. It's a community initiative, appears only one person, so it's missing a lot of test cases. They're rather outdated, but it can serve you as a first guidance because it has test cases. But you have to check for yourself, usually in a team. And that brings me to how to use a screen reader. If you haven't used a screen reader yet, go expand on your knowledge and at first search on YouTube. You can search for demos. There's an abundance of videos, people showing how to use a screen reader and how that works, what actually happens if someone uses a screen reader. And next thing, try it out for yourself. You might already have it installed on your computer or telephone. macOS and iOS comes with VoiceOver pre-installed. Android has TalkBack. Microsoft has Narrator. On Linux, there's Orca. NVDA is free and open source, very common. It's only for Windows, and especially when visiting websites, NVDA with Firefox or Edge are combinations to test. And if you have enough money, and I'm only mentioning it for completeness sake, JAWS is the biggest and most powerful screen reader, but it's also very expensive. eventually, how to get better is to have technology help you. Enhance your workflow by using or extending your linting. Use an accessibility linter that can find really basic errors, accessibility errors, and semantic issues in your code. Imagine you write an image tag, but you forget the alt attribute. The linter will tell you. Your final pages, check them with the plugin Xcore. It's automated testing. You can also integrate it in your CI pipelines. And make it a habit of checking the pages using only a keyboard. So put away your mouse. Maybe also, there's one tip I often read, is like, if I'm a right-hand person, so I put my right hand behind my back and only have the left hand and tab through pages to test things. So these are an abundance of and a variety of resources that you can use in your daily work. Let's get to the summary part. Semantic HTML represents the meaning of your content. The content is the foundation for everything else, how you present your information. Context, convention, as well as connotations and associations play a strong role in how we mutually understand each other, for the good and for the bad. The separation of concerns, keep it in mind. Your content has a specific meaning. Represent that in the HTML layer. HTML has defined semantics. Learn them and use them accordingly. Again, HTML is the first layer. Don't break it. And the last part has nothing and everything to do with everything I just said, but it's a thing that is very important to me. Practice the phrase, I don't know, I will have to look that up. Thank you.
No, thank you. We actually do have a question. Someone asks, I've heard that the accessibility features on Apple products are very good compared to others, but I have to admit that I haven't tried them. Can you confirm that, or are they overhyped?
The accessibility, is the person in the room, are you talking about the screen reader voiceover or? Yeah, voice. So from what I know from the past is people who are blind or with low vision, yes, they, especially at the beginning, used an iPhone very often because it was very good. They could use websites very good on their phone. How the status is now, I think the rest kept up, but I don't know like which is better or which is more favorable in with people with disabilities. So that I can say.
All right. Leon has a recommendation. He says, in Gießen, there's the Blitz, the Blindenzentrum, attached to the University of Applied Sciences, and you can contact them to have blind people review your pages from like real blind users' perspective, giving really good practical feedback that is of a different quality than feedback from accessibility tools.
Very good.
Look at you teaching.
Thank you very much.
Blitz, it's called Blitz, and it's in Gießen. But Leon is somewhere. Yep, he's right behind you. He'll tell you all about it. Do you want mine? Do you want? Okay. And then, no question. I just wanted to tell you that you have a very lovely presentation style and did a great job explaining semantic HTML.
Oh my God! Thank you.
And that's, I think, unless someone asks another question, you guys keep doing that. It's very tricky.
I'm also here until tomorrow. I will also take part in the contribution day, so tonight and tomorrow I will be around. Feel free to approach me.
All right, one big round of applause for Katrin. Thank you so much.
Yes, the neon sign, perfect.
Did you guys know that you can buy that? Has anyone mentioned that? Or give a talk. And then I keep trying to reminding myself that please vote for the talks, rate the talks. And that's it from us for now. It's really dumb to have my watch and the microphone in the same hand. In about 13 minutes, we'll move on with Sebastian Kufist. Up here, I think. Yep. My joke worked. For the longest time, the talk didn't have a title, and it was just empty in the slides. And I figured we'll remind him 100 times, and then I wrote something in. So maybe we'll have to figure out a musical setup for the next talk. Yeah, all right, let's grab a coffee. Hydrate or dihydrate. Drink some water, kids. It's very warm outside. Thank you.